Welcome to the Coaches Cartel. I'm Chris Dufay, and this is where us trainers, coaches, and fitness professionals build our dream businesses. We are going to give you the tools, the strategies, and the methods so you can get more clients and earn more money doing the work that you love and live with more freedom. So I'm pumped to be able to sit down with you, Jackson. You are an amazing human being. We've known each other for a couple of years now, and you're fountain of wisdom, where I want us to be able to take a cup and be able to take a sip of what it is that you provide, is really about money. And why I think this is so important, why I actually wanted to reach out to you when I did, and I was like, dude, I want us to do an episode and really to dig in deep about money, because I know there's a lot of people listening right now, one being me for so long, when it came to struggling with money in so many different ways and not truly understanding its inherent value and how we actually use it as a tool. So Jackson, thank you, dude, for taking the time for being here.
Thanks for the invite, mate. Looking forward to it.
All right. In a nutshell, just if anyone doesn't know who the great Jackson is, who are you, dude?
Yeah, so I'm Jackson Milan. I'm also known as the Wealth Mentor. I've been involved in the wealth and business strategy space for about 14 years now. And I got involved in this industry because of my parents. My parents were both business people. My mum was a hairdresser. She tried to run a salon and really struggled. My old man was a bit of a dreamer, tried his hand at everything and never really stuck to anything for long enough to see success. But the common theme between them is that they were always working long hours, like 16-hour days for most of my childhood. And they always taught me, they said, Jackson, if you work hard enough at something, you'll be successful. And in their case, if hard work would have resulted in financial freedom, they would have been squillionaires. But the reality is that's not how the world works. And they always struggled for every dollar that they made. So I really wanted to get into a space to kind of be a catalyst for change, because what I understood very early on is that they didn't understand the language of money. They didn't know how to make money work for them, and they were a slave to money. So I got involved in the advice industry, and I very quickly realized that the advice game was just about flogging products with commissions to people like my parents who really didn't need it. And I was really kind of sickened by what the industry was. So I decided to kind of bin the term financial advisor and create the term wealth coach. And I've dedicated myself to educating service-based business owners for the better part of the last decade to help them understand the language of money and actually manufacture real financial freedom. And over that time, we've helped our clients build, as of today's date, about 1.4 billion in combined wealth.
Love that. Okay, this is so good. I'm already taking notes, so we're going to be digging in as we go through this. Where I want to start with this is, what are the biggest mistakes people are making when it comes to, let's just say, business owners, when it comes to the management of their money and also them creating wealth?
There's two fundamental issues, Chris. The first one is that they treat their business as if it's the destination when it is actually a vehicle. Your business is the best wealth creation vehicle that you can ever have. And as being a business owner, you are part of an elite 1% club of the wealthiest individuals that have ever lived on this earth. Because if you look at any rich list around the world, the vast majority of those individuals, apart from the ones who have inherited wealth, which was created through business, are people who are self-made business owners who've been able to manufacture wealth using their business. The only difference between you and them is that they position their business as a vehicle for wealth creation, and you've created your business to be a baby that is reliant on you. The second thing is chasing vanity metrics. We've been conditioned by society to feel like we have to attain a certain level of wealth or profit or finance to be able to be successful. And we're so blindly pursuing money for the sake of blindly pursuing money, and then we've fallen into this consumer trap that most of us haven't really taken the time to take a step back and reflect on what we really want as individuals, what drives us intrinsically as a human being, and therefore how can we use money to manufacture what financial freedom actually means to us.
That's amazing. Okay, so that's so good, Jackson. And sorry, I want to interject here because when I went through like what financial freedom actually means for myself, it was only a couple of weeks ago that we were like going through this. I was like, whoa, that's amazing. And that's really not that far down the track. Like, it's just around the corner, and it's actually so much less than I thought as well when being smart about it. So it suddenly became real in my head, in my world. So when someone comes to you, Jackson, I'd love to know this. When someone comes in, sits down and be like, Jackson, I'm running a business. It's doing okay. It can obviously do better, but I want to create financial freedom. Where do you take that conversation to help steer them in the right way?
Yeah, it's actually easier than you think. I think the biggest problem is that, firstly, we've been conditioned to believe that financial freedom is reserved for people who are old and grey. It's just that we've got to our age 65 or whatever that magic number is, and that's when we can achieve financial freedom. So we're on this 40-year marathon to potentially enjoy 20 years if we're lucky. And this is something that I redefined my rules around this when my old man passed away at 66 from pancreatic cancer, 1 year after a traditional retirement age. He didn't even get an opportunity to enjoy the fruits of his labor. So like, it's stuff this, like, we work so hard. Who's to say, who told us that we have to wait until we're old and grey in order to manufacture financial freedom? So the first thing we do is we define what financial freedom actually means. Because for everyone, financial freedom is different. For some people, they have no intention to retire. I know for myself, I would go absolutely mental if I stopped working. But it's about having the freedom to choose around the work that I do and when I do that work, not having to work because I have to and because I need to, because I actually deeply want to. And it's about understanding, what do I want outside of my business? So what we firstly work through is we actually map out a 20-year lifestyle and financial roadmap with our clients, of getting them crystal clear on what are all of the key milestones, both qualitative and quantitative, for them to actually manufacture financial freedom. And you'll be surprised that the number's not as big as you think, particularly when you're a business owner, that when you can systemize your business and manufacture consistent profits, financial freedom is quite easy to acquire if you know what your measure of success is.
It's really funny when you say that. What rings in my head is like James Franco's words that I've heard him say so many times, which is like, most people like will say, come to him and be like, I want to go from a 7-figure to an 8-figure business. And it's always like, well, why? Like, what is it? And I think that's definitely one of those vanity metrics where it's just like growth for the sake of growth, where it's not actually stepping back and being like, well, hang on, why do I want to actually build, one, this business, and two, what's the money going to do for me at the end of the day? I'm super interested. What are the typical numbers someone throws at you to begin with when they're like, yo, Jackson, I want financial freedom? Like, what do we do?
I had a crazy one recently that I had a client came to us and she said she wanted $2 million a year in passive income. And this is coming from somebody who's earning less than $100,000 a year now. And I just said, look, okay, that's cool. Let's unpack this. Why? Let's start working at how we're going to spend this money. Okay. So let's do worst case scenario. Let's assume that you pay the top marginal tax rate of that 2 mil. So you got $1 million left. Okay. Let's look at your current lifestyle. Your current lifestyle's 60, 70 grand a year. Cool. Okay. What do we do with the rest? Okay. I want to do some holidays. Okay. Pointy end of the plane. Yes. Awesome. Cool. Okay. 50 grand a year. What's next? Okay. Nice accommodation. 20 grand a year. What's next? And by the time we got through the list, she'd run out of steam and we'd still had 80% of the money left to spend. It's like, oh, wow. Okay. So I go, well, where's this number coming from? I don't know. I think many people use money and a vanity metric when it comes to their money as a way of filling a void in their self-limiting beliefs and how they actually value themselves. I think people who have a really deep intrinsic value and understanding of what it is that is a measure of success for them, the less money they realize they actually need. And this is for myself included. For a very long time, when I was younger, I wanted to create a $100 million business and I wanted to have thousands of staff and all of these things that are just padding my ego.
Yeah.
And it was a character flaw. It really was. It was me kind of filling a void of a characteristic that I thought that I was lacking. And I thought that was the only way for me to contribute value to the world. But as I've continued to grow a successful multi-7-figure business, and I've been able to manufacture financial freedom to a point where I'm going to spend a year traveling around Australia in a 4-wheel drive, running a business from the road, manufactured financial freedom by my own definition by 31. And what more do you want? And it's just understanding what are those milestones and goalposts for you so you can run your own race, not somebody else's.
Dude, I absolutely love this. So before we start diving into like the numbers and the what do we do's, one thing that has come increasingly apparent in my head, and that is things change, our thoughts, our actions, our decisions, the way we feel changes dependent on the timeline that we give things. So if I'm saying, yo, I want to double the business in the next quarter, well, shit, things become hard, not fun. Do you know what I mean? A lot of friction, and you make certain decisions compared to saying, hey, I want to double the business in the next 3 years, for example. When it comes to the manufacturing of financial freedom, Jackson, like, how do you help people actually gauge, and I don't love the word realistic, but how do you help them gauge a timeline that actually is real?
Yeah, great question. There's three levers, and most people try and pull one lever, which is actually not the best one to pull. So lever number one is how much can you contribute towards your goal? Lever number two is how much risk are you prepared to take? And lever number three is how long are you prepared to wait? And where people are willing to want to have things fast, they want to compromise the third one, right? They want, okay, I want everything tomorrow. I want everything within a year. I want everything in this short period of time, which leaves us only two levers. And the second lever that people are most likely to pull is the risk lever. I'm just going to ramp up the risk. I'm going to put everything on red and see what happens. But unfortunately, that is an external risk. It is very difficult to manage, particularly when we're talking about investments. The third lever, which is actually the easiest one to pull as a business owner, is how much can we contribute? So if people want to manufacture financial freedom in 5 years, and let's say they want to have $4 million of net wealth in order to allow them to have enough passive income to be able to choose what they do with their time, it's not the risk that actually matters the most, because the compounding period is actually so short, it's minimal. It doesn't have much impact. The most significant lever is how much can we contribute. So it's a matter of how far do we need to scale the business and how much profit do we need that's going to provide us with the means to create that wealth. And what this allows us to do, Chris, is it allows us to shift the way that we view our business. It takes it from being the baby that's reliant on us to a turbocharged vehicle that's going to speed us to the real destination. And we stop focusing on revenue and we start focusing on profit. Then we stop focusing on profit and then we focus on real cash flow. Because I don't know if you've encountered any clients like this, but like, oh, great, my P&L looks fantastic. I've got all of this profit. Where's the money? It's not in my bank account. Where did it go? So it's about how do we actually make sure that if you're making this money, how does it actually represent it in a physical bank account and by way of cash? And then how are we making that work for you outside of your business? That's what is most important.
That's amazing. Where do you think people go wrong most when it comes to actually not putting cash in their back pocket?
There's really three key things. First one is I don't have a plan. So what that ultimately means is that none of us work well without a plan. It's like if you've never trained before in your life and you go into a gym without a training regime and you just start going willy-nilly, picking up weights and putting them back down and doing this and doing that, you're probably not going to get the best result. And you're probably not going to be committed for the long term because you don't have the structure and you're probably going to second guess yourself. Same thing happens when it comes to your finances. We all need a North Star because that North Star gives us something to work towards and it keeps us on track. The second thing is that most businesses don't have a financial operating system that is conducive to them holding on to their cash. So their business, instead of being a profit-making machine, is more like a cash-eating monster. And the reality is it's not big things. It's not like most people aren't going out and buying crazy big things all of the time. It's the little things that have the biggest impact. And we call them cash flow bottlenecks. Most of us go, that doesn't make a difference. I don't care about that. It's only $10 or $50 or $100. But they add up because it's normally multiple of these things that consume thousands, in some cases, tens of thousands of dollars a month in cash flow that's just slipping through your fingers.
Dude, I got to say, I've got to say this is hilarious because I went through and there was so many pieces of like software and shit like that that was just like we were spending money on. And I was like, we don't even use that anymore. Like we turned off so much stuff and I was just like, that's just direct money in my back pocket that we just saved or can reinvest into the business to grow faster. So it's hilarious. So please continue.
It happens all of the time, mate. And we've seen this at crazy levels. Like we had a client that we took from having a $27,000 loss per month in their business within a period of 3 months to having a $30,000 per month profit. That's a $60,000 per month turnaround in $1 million business. It's huge. So it's just one of these things that most people just let things go crazy. And that's obviously an extreme level, but we can fix these things quite quickly. And the third one is consistency. Their business is a roller coaster. They haven't got the balance of their sales and marketing and their delivery and growth down pat. So they sell and bring on a lot of clients and they go, oh shit, I've got to deliver. And they forget about their sales and marketing. So they're on this roller coaster ride of one good month followed by one shit month. And you can't plan unless you've got consistency.
What are the tools that you think are actually effective when it comes to like planning and putting this stuff together?
The big one is having a roadmap. We need to have a financial roadmap for us to work out, okay, what is the destination? And then how do we reverse engineer that into the key milestones and essentially checkpoints that almost presuppose that if we do the activity, we get the outcome. Because where most people fail when it comes to their money is they just don't understand exactly what needs to happen. Their perception of what they think is going to happen with their money is very different than the reality. So our aim is to make sure that the perception and the reality are very closely intertwined and overlapped.
This is good. This is really good. And okay, before we jump into like the actual nitty gritty, like roll up our sleeves, get this job done. Can we talk mindset for a second, or mind trash, especially when it comes into this? Because I love what you said before at the beginning, which was, why do we think that we have to work so hard for so many years and then try at 65, put our feet up? Like that is such a lie. It is such a belief system that is just, I just cannot, it's poison. I believe, I honestly think it is poison. And so when it comes to people's headspace, let's say, when it comes to money, how do you help them there?
It's sometimes difficult, it takes time. It's all about progress over perfection. Because I think we've all been conditioned from when we were little kids to see money and financial freedom in a very particular way. That essentially our whole society is built on this idea of having this kind of worker ant force where everyone's working for the man and they're putting small amounts of money away in pursuit of this greater tomorrow. And that tomorrow just happens to take 40 years to be able to achieve. And then that's when you deserve to kind of kick up your legs and enjoy sipping rum out of a coconut in the Bahamas if you're lucky, right? But I don't know about you, but I'm not motivated for 30 years or more in the future. Like that's so far away that, particularly as a business owner, that stuff's changing so quickly, like even month to month, even planning a year out is sometimes very difficult, that being motivated for something that's 30, 35 years away is just impossible to fathom. So if we are running a race that we're essentially destined to lose because we can't defer gratification that far into the future, then how do we play to win? And this is about redefining your own rules about financial success. And this comes down to a study that was done by Stanford University, where basically what they did is they interviewed thousands of individuals and they got them to translate their connection to their future self by way of two overlapping circles. So one circle was their current state and one circle was their future version of themselves in, say, 10 years' time.
I wanted to quickly jump in and make sure that if you haven't subscribed to the show, to do so now. That way you're not going to miss any of the episodes, the strategies, or the free trainings that I've got coming for you. Also, if you want to get the book, Your First 100 Clients, or you want access to the 6-figure Fit Pro plan or the $1 million Fit Pro plan, or all three of them, just go to coachescartel.com/free group. I've got everything there for you to get access to for free inside of that group. Plus, you're going to be able to get together with all the other top fitness professionals.
If the circles were drawn more closely overlapped, they were deeply connected to their future self. And if they were loosely overlapped or not overlapped at all, their future self was basically a stranger. So if your future self is a stranger, you're never going to sacrifice for that stranger. So it's about understanding what is the time period that you need to be planning for financially where you are connected enough to your future self that you're willing to sacrifice for that future self. And that is the underlying principle of what we do.
I really like that. So what comes in my head when you say that, Jackson, is like when you say 10 years down the track, I'm like, fuck, I really struggle to look 10 years down the track. Like I don't feel like I can grasp and palpate that timeline. 5 years, better. 3 years kind of feels a bit true. Which is really interesting because it was just over 8 years ago that I actually left Australia for the first time, moved to Dubai, in Bali. Now we're back in Australia and we're pretty much calling this home. And so how do you help me figure out a better, like, do you mean like, how do I have a better grasp on setting myself up for a longer term future?
Yeah, great questions. This is about understanding your trajectory, because ultimately the path that you set yourself on in the short term, typically over the next 12 months, will typically dictate your future success. And if that is an upwards trajectory, then that's likely, if you can maintain that trajectory should continue to compound and grow. And what we aim to do is we look at understanding the power of small now and how that compounds over 20 years. Mm-hmm. Where majority of people that we first start working with, when we do that 20-year plan, once we get to 10 years and beyond, things get really fluffy and kind of cloudy and hard to define. But what we typically do is we say, okay, this is what you want in 1 year or 5 years or 10 years. Do we want more of that over the course of the next, say, 15 and 20 years? Cool. Okay. So what does that look like? Instead of doing 20 grand a year on travel, it might be 50. Instead of living in a $1 million house, it might be a $3 million house, whatever that might be. And it's about understanding the decisions that you make today. Does that get you on the trajectory to have the financial means that would give you the possibility to have those things? Because those things will inevitably change. However, does that mean that we should just not plan for them at all and just allow life to unfold? And then potentially we decide that we want something. We say, oh, actually, I want to buy a $3 million house tomorrow. Well, shit, I haven't been planning for the past 5 years for any possibility like that. So now I'm stuffed. So it's just about understanding and putting ourselves in a frame of mind of what could be possible and making sure that we're committing enough financial means to give us the freedom and flexibility when those things come around to have the choice. And that's all that matters.
I love that. Dude, this is really good. Okay. Let's get dirty with it then. Let's say, I'll just use the numbers that I went through, to be perfectly honest. I'm happy to share this. So when I went through a kind of like first class lifestyle for myself with zero debt, really only cost 190 grand a year. So this, and again, I want you to poke holes in this kind of methodology. So then the next steps were, if I times by 24, the 190 grand becomes like 4.5 mil. So therefore, if I have $4.5 million in cash producing assets, I'm able to live my first class lifestyle without ever having to work a day in my life. Now, obviously, we clearly want to like work. We're loving what we do, which is also an interesting, because I think we might swing around this later. It's like, what do we do when money isn't really the driver? But when it comes to this, and when someone goes, okay, Chris, you just said multiply by 24 your first class lifestyle expenses. What are you doing with that times by 24? Like, what does that process look like? What are the holes that you can poke in, Jackson? Because I really want you to, because I'm really coming here for your expertise. And then what are the actual fundamental steps to do with that money?
Yeah. So that comes from a principle that was developed by a guy called Dave Ramsey, who's fantastic, but I think it's actually a little bit conservative. And as business owners, most business owners aren't conservative, and I think we can push the pace on that a little bit. So what we define for our clients is 3 key North Stars, and these deviate depending on the client, but this gives us some things to work towards. So our aim for achieving financial freedom is that we should have a business that produces us $400,000 a year or more in profit. We should have a business that allows us to work 4 days a week and 44 weeks a year. And then we should build $4 million in net wealth, which should provide us with around about $200,000 a year in passive income, which you've worked on the rule of 24, which assumes about a 4% yield. Yeah. We aim, that's a very conservative. We aim for about a 5% yield.
Gotcha.
So the best way to work this out is we get our clients to do what we call a personal profit and loss. We don't call it a budget. We hate the dirty B word. A personal profit and loss is using business terminology for us to understand what our life actually costs now. So what are your living expenses? What is your lifestyle cost, entertainment, all of those nice things? We should do that as our baseline. That is our scenario 1. We should save that, and then we should make a second version, which is the aspirational lifestyle. Similar to what I spoke about with that client who wanted the $2 million a year in passive income. We just said, okay, this is your baseline. What do we change? Okay, mortgage is paid off. Let's remove that. Okay, your personal spending of what you spend each week on yourself. We increase that from $200 a week to $500 a week. We increase your holidays from 20 grand a year to 50 grand a year. We increase this, we increase that. And that should give you a magic number a year. How much do you need in order to live your dream lifestyle? Whatever that number is, so in your case is 190,000, we divide that by 5 and then we times that by 100. And that should be just shy of about 4 mil.
Right.
It's a
Amazing.
magic number.
The life became even easier for me.
Exactly. And then what that means is that is financial freedom. But here's the thing, when we bring this back to Maslow's hierarchy of needs, that gets us to our ego needs of being able to have the freedom for us to reach our potential and be able to have the freedom of choice. But then what now happens is we now transition to self-actualization, or what we call financial abundance. How do we get ourselves to a position where all of our needs are met for us and our immediate family unit? Then what do we want? What is our impact and our legacy that we want to leave in the world? Is it about creating generational wealth? So for every generation of your family to come, they will never have to go without. Is it philanthropy? Do you want to make a real difference in the world by helping people who are in need, whether it be local or international? Or do you want to do more? Do you want to pursue your passions, your creative passions, anything else that you measure as success? Because reality is there's two tradable commodities. There's time and there's money. We're trading our time to make money now, ultimately to have enough money that we can buy back our time later.
I love that you brought up intergenerational wealth. And I'm pretty sure it was from reading Ray Dalio that was kind of like the first time that idea came to me. And it was like a lightning bolt to my head, because I was like, why the hell have I never thought about this before? Like, why have I not felt before the responsibility for me to provide not just for my children, but for their children and their children's children, and then going on down the line. And it really lit me up, because I was like, oh my God, like this is a responsibility of mine. I do want to take this on. So when it comes to creating intergenerational wealth, Jackson, like, how does someone even wrap their head around what that is and what that would look like if they're at the moment going, boys, this sounds great, but you know what? I'm just like struggling to put some savings in my bank account right now.
100%. I think it's about putting yourself into a future perspective of what drives you. And that can help us presuppose the short-term outcome. So I've found for myself that I'm not financially driven, which comes at a surprise when I've helped my clients build billions in wealth, right? But money is just a tool for me. I'm not driven by it itself. I'm driven by the opportunities and the freedoms that money provides me. And what I'm also driven by is by the impact that I can create in the lives of others. So once I understood my drivers, I could then reverse engineer those outcomes that I wanted into the amount of money and wealth that I needed to manufacture to allow me to achieve those outcomes. And one of the things in terms of my legacy is about giving back in greater ways. So I'm actually writing my third book at the moment, which is about how to create what we call a family vault, how to build generational wealth and keep it. And the fundamental principle behind this is that it's not about just creating the wealth, but it's also about creating values that you pass on to the next generation. Because there are so many wealthy families that money has been passed, but not the values. And as the saying goes, they go from shirt sleeves to shirt sleeves. They blow the money within 3 generations and it's gone. A prime example is the Vanderbilt family, which is one of the most wealthy families in the US. They were actually one of the richest people in the world. They had mansions all over the US, one on Fifth Avenue. And by the early 1900s, the Fifth Avenue mansion had been demolished because they physically could not afford the upkeep. They'd blown all of the money. So what we start with here, Chris, is a 100-year plan. Let's use a case study here. China. China in the early 1900s and really preceding World War II was one of the poorest countries in the world, had experienced huge amounts of famine, low levels of education, very little industrial evolution at all. And the Chinese government came up with a 100-year vision that by 2045, that they would be, and Siri's listening to me, that they would be the #1 superpower in the world. And in a period of 30 years and 40 years, even 50 years, they've experienced more economic growth than any other group of people in history. And it was all driven by being invested into a 100-year vision. So if you want to change the course of every generation to come in your family, then you need to make it your vested interest for you to map out what that next 100 years looks like for your family. Sounds scary, but it's super powerful.
Dude, I love this 100-year vision. I'm going to sit down today and stew on that. Where I really want to take this is you driving around Australia, doing it is what you want to do. How did this idea come about, and what were the actual logistical things that went on in your head to be like, all right, this is what I'm going to do, and this is how it's going to happen?
Yeah, it was born by the fact that we've worked with thousands of clients, and we help them build this 20-year plan. And we always have these conversations around these aspirational lifestyle and financial goals. And a lot of these key milestones, like having the freedom and flexibility to be out of your business and be able to work on your business, not in it, all of the common cliches that we hear all of the time, right? But they're all so far in the future. And a lot of the common things were, I want to take a year off and travel Europe, or I want to do the big lap with my family and take my kids out of school and go and experience this thing with them. But it was always so far in the future. And I would always challenge them and say, why then? Why not sooner? And there was always excuses. I can't do it because of this. I can't do it because of that. And I've always been a believer that you either find a way or you find an excuse. So I said, okay, well, I'm going to prove to you all that it's possible now, because I haven't really seen anybody do it. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to manufacture financial freedom within 12 months. I'm going to pack up my life into a four-wheel drive, and then I'm going to show you how do we create a proper lifestyle business. And not just I think many people define a lifestyle business as being a part-time thing that maybe a stay-at-home parent does on the side to make a couple of extra bucks. Well, we've got a $5 million business with 27 staff, and I'm going to show you how to create a multiple seven-figure lifestyle business, one that can run whilst I'm living my best life at 31. So we put the wheels in motion. I set this goal about 12 months ago. We planned it all out. We basically said, okay, this is the vehicle that we're going to get. This is the route that we're going to take. Our plans are very, very loose. We're just kind of rolling with the punches. And then really it's just a matter of saying, okay, how can I phase myself out of as many of the day-to-day operations as I possibly can to allow me to basically be in a leadership role and do the things that really light me up, so I don't compromise the experience of this once in a lifetime opportunity for most of me traveling around the country and doing all of these amazing things. The last thing I want to do is have to be on phone calls for 12 hours a day. So it's just about setting the wheels in motion. And it was interesting. As soon as I set the intention and I set the date, everything started to fall into place.
Dude, I love this. It kind of comes into my mind. I was listening to Joe Polish and how he started a year-long sabbatical, and it really planted a seed in my head where I was like, oh yeah, really good. And then there's obviously, let's say, Michael Mikhalowicz's Clockwork Challenge, where it's like, okay, you take 4 weeks off the business and you go dark, nothing, no work, no clients, no content, nothing whatsoever. And I think this is actually a very, very good exercise to run, almost like a red team exercise, where it's like you've got to run through and be like, well, what are the problems that are going to come up? And also, what are the things that I must get myself out of, and how do I actually set this business up to be an organism that can truly grow without me having to be there, push it as well. And I had this realization. I actually said this to my team in a meeting 2 mornings ago. And I go, dudes, I had this realization that I really need to be able to build this business. So if I get hit by a bus later today, your livelihoods are good as gold, and you're not affected at all. And I know it's a bit of a morbid, weird way to think about it, but it's very true. How do I set this up? Because I have the livelihoods of many, many people a part of this business. So therefore, how do we set it up where it's not the Chris show, it's them being able to be a part of something so much bigger than what it really is for me. And I love that you bring this, Jackson. I think this is a message that really needs to be hammered home hard to so many people about being able to do this. And you literally walking the walk, I really appreciate. I'm looking forward to watching your journey go through it as well. You coming via Sunshine Coast at all?
We will, mate. Yeah, so we're heading north from the northern beaches. So we're doing about 500 Ks a week to make it around the country in a year. So we'll be up the sunny coast, I think, end of April. So we'll catch up then, mate. I'm looking forward to it.
I love it. Okay, dude, this has been incredible.
Yeah, here's the thing. One last tip, guys, for everyone who's listening. Taking a month out of your business and going completely dark is probably really scary and daunting for most business owners. Start with one day. Block out Fridays every single week in your business where it is your work on the business day, and just see what happens. And then if you do one day and things don't break, then go to 2 days and then fix what breaks and then go to 3 days and then continue to extend it. And the aim should be that you should be able to take at least 2 weeks off every 3 months completely out of your business. And the one thing that I think most of us have been conditioned is to be fearful of failure, because that's what society has told us from school. We were reprimanded for failing. We were always said that the gold standard was perfection. No, business is about failing fast. The one thing to remember is that systems in your business are made to be broken because it gives you an opportunity to fix it. So that should be your mission, to get your business to break as often and frequently as you possibly can, because it allows you to continue to build it up better.
It's really funny. I was reading a Ken Wilber book, A Theory of Everything, last night before going to bed, and I read in one of the passages a definition of a good theory. A good theory is a theory that gets you to the next theory. And I was like, that's so true. And I love it. And it's sort of, I just had 2 dots connect just then, because it's like a good system is a system that gets you to the next better system. And that we must continually push and grow and change and adapt and evolve. So yeah, I like that, dude. You're a smart cookie, Jackson. I appreciate it.
I try my best, mate.
Amazing. Okay, dude, this is so good. Where do people go to find out more about you and everything that you guys are doing?
A couple of ways. Add me on Facebook to search for me, Jackson Milan. I produce a lot of content, make really complex financial principles super simple and easy to implement. So feel free to add me. We've also got a Facebook group called 6 and 7 Figure CEOs, turning business profit into wealth. So that's the best place to find us. And you'd love to have a conversation and see how I can support.
Amazing. And just for everyone listening and watching in, I really thought long and hard about who would be the right person to bring into this. And Jackson just kept popping up in my mind time and time again. So, dude, I really appreciate you. You're an awesome human being. I know my life is better because you're in it. And I know the listeners are better off for this as well. So, dude, I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks, my friend. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you so much for joining me in this episode. Now, the easiest next step for me and my team to be able to help you is to do what we call a strategy session. This is just a super quick call for us to do 3 things for you. Because number 1, we need to figure out where it is that you want to go. How much money do you want to be earning? What's the ultimate business model that you want to be in? How do you want to be helping your clients? And really, what does success really look like for you? The second thing we need to figure out is, where are you right now? Maybe you're starting from absolute scratch. Maybe you've been in the fitness game for years. And the third thing we need to do is what everyone needs, is you need to be able to have the right plan in place, because depending on where you are and depending on where you want to go means that you need a custom plan to fit you, because I'm not a fan of cookie cutter solutions. They're not going to give you the answer that you're really looking for. So if you want to be able to jump on a quick strategy call with me and my team, all you need to do is go to coachescartel.com/apply. You'll be able to go through a quick couple of questions so we know that we can actually help you. Choose a time for your call, and then we'll be able to actually map out what it is that you need to do. And also, if you're a little bit skeptical, totally don't worry. I'm with you. I would be too not that long ago. But this is the easiest way for us to help you. There's nothing to buy on this call. This is our way of making sure that you are actually a good fit. Worst case scenario, you take the plan that we give you, you run with it, and you use it yourself. Best case scenario, we're going to be able to help you implement it as well. So all you need to do now is go to coachescartel.com/apply, and I'm looking forward to chatting with you really soon, and I'm looking forward to seeing you in the next episode.